Breakfast. Truly the best version of an American meal regularly available to the consumer. You got eggs, you got bacon, you got ham, you got buttered toast, something that is truly in my top 5 foods of all time. Then it can get decadent. You can have chocolate chip pancakes, Belgian waffles, French toast, and if that's not good enough for you, you can just go ahead and pour more sugar sauce on top of those things. It doesn't matter before 11 a.m., rules and safety do not apply. But what if I told you this world of over-easy smiley faces and Snoopy-shaped waffles was all but a lie? Breakfast as we know it is just a thin veil over a horrifying reality. Like that room in my apartment where I shove all my dirty clothes before I have people come over. Since its inception, the concept of breakfast is a flawed system that was only invented for the most nefarious of means. So come with me while I explain that the most important meal of the day is actually the dumbest and stupidest meal of the day. I could have stuck the landing on that better. I could have said something cooler. So to understand why breakfast is the joke that it is today, we need to start at the beginning of this horrible historic meal. And historically, that would be around the 13th century, I guess. Back then, Thomas Aquinas wrote the Summa Theologica, a comprehensive collection of Catholic theology. Did you guys expect to hear about the Catholics in this video? Because I certainly didn't. The Summa Theologica is about 3,000 pages long, and it explains the important things, like the eternal nature of God, the creation of the world, and for some reason, the dangers of breakfast. Aquinas claimed that eating in the morning led to gluttony, one of the 7 deadly sins. You know, pride, greed, lust, envy, wrath, sloth, and the Denny's Grand Slamwich. To prevent gluttony, Europeans in the Middle Ages just didn't eat breakfast. Oh my god, how did they even get through their workday? In its essence, it was intermittent fasting, but before people were doing it to try and lose weight, and instead they were doing it at a time where you were counting your calories to ensure you didn't die in your sleep. But Aquinas was only echoing hundreds of years of Catholic teachings. For example, St. Gregory the Great said, "As long as the belly is unrestrained, all virtues come to naught." It's truly amazing how strict the Catholics were about keeping your tummy tight, and instead of things like exorbitant wealth or that other thing they're super known for. This extreme piousness also led to us calling it breakfast because, you know, you broke your fast. Now, I don't want to insult anyone's intelligence by explaining that, but I know there's at least one person in this audience that's thinking, oh my god, I never noticed that, and they're dumb, so I had to say it. Considering that fasting is supposed to show that you've conquered your desires of the flesh, it kind of makes breakfast an affront to God. So we have that going against breakfast at this point in the video. Now let's make a large jump in history all the way up to the Industrial Revolution. I understand that some important things happened between the 13th and 18th century, but for the sake of brevity, no it didn't, okay? So as we all know, work sucks. Sucks big wang. I hate work so much that I have made multiple videos about it. Looking for a job sucks, having a job sucks, and I know what you're thinking, oh Tucker, you don't even have a real job, you're just an internet clown who gets paid to have fun. But if modern jobs have given us one positive thing, it would be breakfast. Or so we thought at one point before you watched this video. Up until the Industrial Revolution, certain segments of the population would eat in the morning, shamefully hiding it from God like a good Catholic boy. But that's because these jobs were physically demanding, like throwing around hay or collecting hay to throw around. But by the mid-18th century, manufacturing had started regulating working hours and ensuring tons of people had jobs in factories. Before the birth of factories, craftsmen were highly valued for their skill sets. But automation sadly devalued their expertise, something that will only happen once in history, and we probably don't have to worry about it ever again. And as a result, more workers than ever had to answer to a boss. Womp womp. And these bosses came way before something like HR departments were around, let alone safe working conditions. Employees worked 6 14-hour shifts a week on average, which is insane, and you were often required to clean your machines during meal times. Factory floor managers were ruthless when they were imposing their rules, because what are you gonna do? This is the only mill within like 50 miles. You have to work here, and I'm gonna make you look like an idiot. Workers faced fines and even physical beatings if they stepped out of line. One common punishment was called strapping, which sounds horny, but it wasn't. This is where you were tied up and whipped with a thin leather strap for insubordination. Actually, that is pretty horny. That's actually shockingly horny. So all of this BS was a pretty good reason to eat food before you showed up. It wasn't like you could pop into the break room and eat a Cliff Bar if you felt your blood sugar getting low, because they would literally beat the shit out of you for eating a Go-Gurt on company time. When you think about it, the roots of breakfast had very little to do with personal enjoyment. It's always just been fuel for you to work harder. You're nothing but a machine powered by a bowl of grape nuts. Objectively the worst food ever made by man. So not only is breakfast an affront to God, it's also a tool used by the bourgeoisie to control the proletariat. Damn, only a few minutes into this video and we've already talked about Catholics and communism. I almost already have a Tugg bingo. Today we have safeguards to protect us against workplace abuse. The worst thing that could physically happen now is when your boss texts you a thumbs up emoji with no context. What the fuck does that mean? Are they mad at me? Are they mad at me? Oh my god, are they gonna fire me? Why are they just giving me a thumbs up? But while we were busy fighting for workers' rights, we also acquired a taste for breakfast. According to a study from Ohio State University, at least 85% of Americans eat some form of breakfast every morning. This could be a healthy bowl of yogurt and granola, or a half pound of bacon and 3 bowls of Cinnamon Toast Crunch, and most people fall somewhere in the middle of those two extremes. In 2023, the global breakfast market netted $450 billion, which kind of makes sense. I mean, the breakfast aisle in a grocery store alone is probably $100,000 worth of merchandise. Why is fucking cereal so expensive? And at least part of breakfast's role in modern society comes from the notion that it's the most important meal of the day. And this, my comrades, is propaganda. Or as us capitalists call it, clever marketing. When Charles Post created grape nuts in 1897, dooming the world to a timeline of hate and confusion, he said the sunshine that makes a business plant grow is advertising. He marketed grape nuts as, and this is a quote, food for brain and nerve centers. Now, I already shit on grape nuts like 3 times in this script, but I am not above hitting the same note. Not only does this horrendous excuse for a meal not include grape and or nuts, there's no way this is doing anything good for my nerves. If anything, it's making them slowly commit suicide due to a lack of will to exist. But marketing works the best on stupid people, so grape nuts sold pretty well. Then, in 1917, Kellogg's slogan upped the ante and gave us the classic breakfast is the most important meal of the day. They just spoon-fed bullshit to people and they ate it with a smile. But it wasn't just the advertising that was questionable during this time period. Charles Post actually invented diseases that he claimed his cereals could cure, in addition to outright lying that it could cure things like consumption, malaria, and loose teeth. You know, loose teeth, those things that you often deal with as an adult. Post's tradition of questionable breakfast science has continued on to this day. While the media and breakfast food companies love touting studies that show favorable results from eating their products, many of the studies that say that people who eat breakfast are healthier are, and this might come as a surprise, funded by the people who are making the goddamn breakfast foods. If that sounds like bad science, that's because it is the definition of bad science. The food industry just pays off scientists to say whatever the hell they want. For example, Kellogg's funded a highly cited article that said eating breakfast makes you skinnier, which just at a glance is full of so much bullshit. Hey, if you eat more food, especially ones covered in sugar and carbs, you'll get skinnier, said the dipshit. And to this day, nothing about modern breakfast evokes self-respect, let alone self-health. And yet everything is marketed as a part of a balanced breakfast. What the fuck even is a balanced breakfast at this point? Well, you know what? I googled it, and when you Google what is a balanced breakfast, the very first result is a page from Kellogg's. A balanced breakfast can be a mix of carbohydrates, fiber, protein, vitamins, and minerals. Doesn't that sound fantastic? I'm sure Kellogg's is hitting all of those fucking marks. Even if their advice is nutritionally sound, it is 100% bullshit. When it comes to what we, as Americans, traditionally eat for breakfast, we are fully brainwashed. Yeah, other countries like Britain are eating beans on toast and congealed blood goo, which might have some vitamins in it. But studies show that despite the fact that many traditional breakfast items are nutrient deficient, Americans still believe these breakfast staples are well suited for the meal. Like pancakes. Let's pause for a moment. Let's listen to that word again. Pancakes. You're eating cake for breakfast. Same goes for waffles or French toast. This is some of the worst shit you can put in your body, and you're doing it first thing in the morning. And then there's the meat we traditionally eat in the morning, and my god, is that a shit show. A big reason our breakfast remains so meat heavy is thanks to a fellow named Edward Louis Bernays, and I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, but I don't give a fuck. In the 19th century, indigestion, aka tummy aches, was so widespread that it was known as America's national disease. Bernays, known as the father of public relations, was in charge of PR for the Beech Nut Company, and Beech Nut sold bacon, which thematically, well, I would think they sell coconuts because that is the beech nut, but whatever, they can sell meat. That didn't make sense back then, and it doesn't make sense now. But even though Beech Nut was selling bacon, a product known to cause indigestion, Bernays somehow convinced a doctor to say that a protein-rich diet like eggs and bacon in the morning is better than a lighter meal. Somehow, back then, a doctor was stupid enough to let that happen. He then sent that statement to 5,000 other doctors who also signed it, also stupid. But the prospect of Americans eating so much bacon that their stomachs would stop hurting was somehow too delicious to ignore. And it's a tradition we carry on to this day by eating these literal strips of poison every morning. Bacon is so bad for you, dude. It is unbelievably bad for you. I love it, but I know it's terrible. Bacon is an extremely processed meat that has been linked to all kinds of terrible shit, like heart disease, stroke, and even cancer. And honestly, we can keep talking about bacon, but I don't even think I shat on cereal hard enough. I didn't shit on that as badly as it deserved. We need to go back to cereal. Americans have this weird fantasy of waking up eating one of those beautiful sitcom breakfasts in the morning so we grow up big and strong, like Johnny Appleseed. But in reality, most Americans don't have the time or stomach fortitude to eat that kind of big a breakfast every single morning. In terms of time, we work way more than our European counterparts. And that's not me shitting on the Europeans. I know it's very American to be like, you got soft hands, son, start working more. But like, I would rather not work as much as we do. On average, Americans rack up 400 more office hours per year than Germans, and that's like 10 extra weeks more. So in the morning, we need something quick and easy that will fatten us up so the capitalistic system can tear us down. Something like cereal, the worst and best thing we've ever had a chance to ingest. Americans eat about 2.7 billion boxes of cereal a year, and I alone account for that number 7. That means on average, an American eats 14 pounds of cereal a year. Cereal was invented in 1863 by a fella named James Caleb Jackson, and I need you to buckle up because this gets super dark unbelievably quickly. Jackson was a religiously conservative vegetarian who ran a medical sanitarium, okay? Did you write that down? It's gonna be on the test. Sanitariums were this weird mix between a spa and a hospital that were popular in the 19th and early 20th century to rehabilitate folks who had tuberculosis. If you've ever seen a John Green video, you know that tuberculosis was not chill and it was a big issue. Jackson had a patented thing called the graham flour dough, and it was healthy, but it was also hard and it needed to be soaked in milk overnight. He was feeding this stuff to people, and the reason why we put milk in cereal is because this shit needed to float in milk in order to be even a little bit edible. But don't worry, all of this gets demonstrably weirder and worse. Dr. John Harvey Kellogg, you know him, created his own version of Jackson's cereal, and he used it to promote eugenics? Dude, what the fuck? Kellogg wrote a paper called Needed, A New Human Race. That's how I'm starting this paragraph, where he encouraged everyone to become involved in eugenics. You know, that horrible thing. I'm not, Google eugenics if you don't know what I'm talking about. Cereal was fed to Kellogg's patients in the sanitarium under a program that he called biologic living. It was supposed to holistically cleanse the body and soul by helping with indigestion and masturbation. I mean, good lord, we were just talking about pancakes. Kellogg was so obsessed with masturbation that he actually recommended sewing foreskins shut and pouring carbolic acid on lady parts. Normal stuff. Normal human stuff, I would say. Other practices at Kellogg's sanitarium included shock treatments and yogurt enemas. Good health. Mr. Kellogg, and I think this goes without saying, was weird about sex. He never even consummated his relationship with his wife. He's never had sex with his wife, and that just goes to show this guy wanted no one to have any fun with their penis. Eventually, despite his own protests, Kellogg's younger brother added sugar to the disgustingly bland cornflakes, and they became a pantry staple. And despite Kellogg's best efforts and all the studies we talked about earlier, the FDA's most recent criteria for a healthy cereal has disqualified both Frosted Flakes and cornflakes. To be healthy, cereals have to contain 3/4 ounces of whole grains, no more than 1 gram of saturated fat and 230 milligrams of sodium, and less than 2.5 grams of sugar. Because of this, several healthy classic cereal brands are out of luck. Cornflakes, Honey Nut Cheerios, Life, and Special K all do not meet the FDA standards to be a healthy cereal, and the worst offender of this entire genre is Raisin Bran. I've been very public with my hate of Raisin Bran. It is a live cereal, and I'm gonna shit on it again. If you're looking at the Venn diagram of boring ass cereals and also terrible for you, that fucking Raisin Bran is right in the middle. It tastes like shit, it has raisins in it for some reason, and it still has more sugar than most horrible cereals. It's got more sugar than Marshmallow Fruity Pebbles, which I didn't even know existed, Fruit Loops with marshmallows, once again, and Lucky Charms. Raisin Bran is worse than eating a bowl of milk and marshmallows. But I'm not saying Fruity Pebbles is good for you. Most of the best-selling cereals in America aren't even in the same ballpark as these FDA regulations, which is probably why, according to the World Health Organization, 160 million children between the ages of 5 and 19 are obese. Hooray! Personally, I'm thrilled that every single sugar cereal has a mascot directly marketing towards children. I think that's fantastic. I'd say make them unhealthy early on. That way, when the revolution comes, they won't be strong enough to pick up a rifle. And it doesn't even end with cereal. There are so many prepackaged sugar bombs that you are expected to eat in the morning just because it's a tradition. You have things like Hot Pockets and Jimmy Dean sandwiches, which I don't even think you can even classify those things as food. And I mean, the worst thing that you can put in your body that has ever breached the breakfast market is a goddamn Pop-tart. In 2022, 3 billion Pop-tarts were sold. We humans cannot get enough of whatever the hell these things are supposed to be imitating. Pop-tarts as a product are purely based on convenience. An easily portable food that doesn't require refrigeration that you can eat hot or cold. The innovation that led to Pop-tarts actually came from World War II. From foil packaging to preservatives, the Pop-tart was applying wartime food processes to the mass market. And who would have thought that the general population would love a breakfast treat that could survive a nuclear blast? When Pop-tarts were introduced in 1964, they came in 4 flavors that were at least pretending to be normal. You had strawberry, blueberry, brown sugar cinnamon, and apple currant, which I would guess 3 of those was more popular than the 4th. Then in 1967, they decided to slather on some frosting that wouldn't melt in heat, which that's normal. That's something you would want to put in your body. Then a few years later, they added sprinkles to the top of Pop-tarts. You know, that visual stimulation that the children need. By 1973, Pop-tarts were coming in 19 flavors, which things were getting weird at this point, I will say. Fast forward 50 years, and we are now making flavors that can't even pretend that they're okay to eat. I just got a list of current Pop-tart flavors, and you tell me what you think about these. We got chocolate chip. That's just a cookie. You're eating cookies for breakfast. You have hot fudge sundae, which is not even the same form of matter, and also you should not eat that for breakfast. S'mores. This one kind of makes sense. Still unbelievably unhealthy. Strawberry milkshake. Once again, that should be a liquid. Confetti cupcake, Boston cream donut, and Apple Jacks. They put the unhealthy fucking cereal into the unhealthy breakfast pastry. I'm not even sure you can classify these things as pastries. When interviewed for the Smithsonian magazine, here's what one physician had to say about Pop-tarts. It raises your blood glucose to astronomical highs, which then makes your pancreas squeeze out a ton of insulin. This bottoms you out so you're hungry for another Pop-tart, which you have, then you get fat and you get diabetes. And they want you to start your day with these things. It's fucking insanity. Next time you wake up craving a bowl of sugar smacks and a strip of greasy bacon, just remember that a sex-obsessed obsessed creep invented the entire concept of breakfast. Like, comment, and subscribe, dude. This shit was crazy. New videos every Saturday and Sunday. Oh, I didn't even talk about juice. There's more sugar in a glass of orange juice than a Pepsi.